Welcome, beautiful thinkers. I'd like to talk to you about infatuation and how it wraps our minds up and gets us tangled and entangled, wrapped into knots, and how you might possibly get out of that. Let's begin.
This is a beautiful thought.
Welcome, beautiful thinkers. I'd like to talk about getting over a crush. So something happened to me a few months back. I started to get to know this woman and something rose up inside of me, this kind of love, but also a kind of infatuation. Actually, not just a kind of infatuation. I was very much infatuated. And it was difficult for me to deal with, in part because I had this sense of my identity, like trying to see myself as a spiritual person, maybe somebody who is unmoved by the world or something like that. Or maybe, some carryover from some previous idea I had about myself, that I was some kind of player, that no woman would get to me, or some weird thing like that. And of course, these aspects of my identity, these beliefs that I had about myself, which really weren't accurate, they made it so much more difficult for me to experience and process the emotions that were going on within me. Because it's like, if I have this idea about myself that I'm too cool or that I'm too well balanced to experience infatuation, that means that I start to try to deny that part of myself, or even feel embarrassed about having a crush, which is something that's perfectly human. It's something that I don't need to deny about myself. I can accept and embrace and love myself, and whatever fanciful emotion that tends to occur. So this is an important principle. I guess I might call it stacking emotions, or you might call it a vicious cycle. So what happens? I feel the infatuation, which, it's difficult enough to deal with by itself. And then I feel the embarrassment on top of it. Or maybe I start to blame myself. Or maybe I start to blame this woman. Of course, it's not her fault that I fell in love with her, or that I was infatuated with her. It's really just her expressing herself. And my emotions are my own responsibility. Now, what I did, of course, the important thing in this case, what I had to do was accept the fact that I was embarrassed, accept the fact that I was blaming myself or blaming somebody else for what was going on, and also accept the fact that I was infatuated. Of course, when I can embrace these ideas, when I can embrace my own emotions, they make them so much easier to deal with, because I can see the information accurately. If I'm in denial about it, it's going to be much more difficult. One important thing that I did as well was avoid the triggers. Well, trigger is kind of a funny word. The activating event is a expression used more commonly in cognitive behavioral therapy. But say, for example, I was learning this song on guitar. Now, it so happens that the persona of the song has a very similar name to the object of my affections. So every time I'm playing this song, I'm in some way reminding myself of her, and my mind is finding ways to justify these feelings. So I'm going through these things in my head. I'm thinking about things that she said and trying to imagine, well, does that actually mean that there is a potential for a relationship? She said this ambiguous thing. Maybe she actually does like me in that way, which in this case, it didn't even matter if she liked me or not. That wasn't the key point. But yes, avoiding the triggers and recognizing these thought patterns when they occur. So if I notice my own thoughts, I can be aware and I can say, am I trying to just justify this to myself? Am I actually intentionally or unintentionally prolonging my own suffering, propping up my infatuation with my thoughts? And of course, it's a kind of natural tendency. And with the society we live in, I mean, this is certain factors, these Disney movies and rom-coms and things. We have these certain ideas about romance. We might get caught in a kind of loop thinking, well, the fact that I have these emotions means that it's something special and she's the one and we're going to be happily ever after or whatever. Those things are quite separate from the emotions. So that's another key point. If we can try to tease out or observe as somewhat separate the emotions and my interpretations of them. Because there's nothing wrong with being in love with somebody or loving somebody. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. But the interpretations of it can cause us a lot of mistakes in our thinking and therefore mistakes in our actions. So these things can be treated as separate. Another thing I noticed, I had a feeling of incompleteness, like I've talked about before, the knot in my stomach. Now, I like what I wrote about this. Let me see. Tension in the belly, incompleteness. Part of being complete is feeling incomplete. You couldn't truly be complete unless you had the capacity to appear incomplete. But the point of this is, it is an illusion. You're not really incomplete. It's just that's what's happening on the surface. You are complete. You're always complete. Another point, the thing that was going on in my mind and in my heart, it's just the thought of her. It's the thought of her. It's not actually her. So what's going on within my mind? I'm having these projections, having these fantasies about being with this woman. It's not real. It doesn't really have much to do with her at all. It has a lot more to do with what's going on within my head. And when I can acknowledge that, well, I can stop blaming other people for my circumstance, for one thing. I can also see the information more accurately, see the situation more accurately. The final thing, this is important to remember, as I mentioned before, there's nothing personal. There's nothing really personal in the universe, just as they say in the Toltec agreements. And if somebody is there and maybe they're treating you not so kindly, or they don't acknowledge your emotions, or they even acknowledge them, but they don't feel the same. And, you might have a different idea about how they should behave, but they're just playing out their own thing. It doesn't necessarily reflect on you. And if they behave poorly, then maybe they're just acting out their own drama. And it doesn't mean that you're good or bad or anything else. It's just impersonal. As impersonal as if you drop a piece of glass on the ground, it will fall. You drop it from your hand and it falls. And that is impersonal. That's just things playing themselves out. Karma in the world, karma in action. And it doesn't reflect on you one way or another. It's just how things are. So those are a few things that went through my head. I do think sometimes, I don't know if this might be a little mental construct for me to distance myself from my own experiences, but sometimes I think these things happen to me so I can learn what's going on, so I can understand intimately these kinds of frames of mind, and so I can help you guys find ways out of it, or even, help myself find ways out of it. And, that's the other thing. It's a fun process. It's an experience. And that is something for you. It's a gift. So we can be grateful for these experiences. Hard, difficult, strange, unusual, suffering, painful. We can be grateful for them. Let's have a good time, even when times are strange. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.
A beautiful thought.
Thanks for coming along there. Thanks for subscribing on Spotify and other podcasting platforms so you can make sure you will enjoy the latest episodes of A Beautiful Thought. Now, tomorrow, you've got a follow-up episode talking about a related topic, basically about infatuation, about the root causes of it, or about the beliefs that we might have which get us locked into this state of mind, and how we can liberate ourselves from us, how we can see things in a different way that give us more freedom. So I'll talk to you about that soon. Have a great day.